there is only one leader who will dismantle the nation-killing policies of the Liberals and NDP, and that, my friends, is Federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre.
The UK is coming back to haunt Mark Carney. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got Liz Truss, the former British Prime Minister, coming back and slamming Mark Carney once again. This is round 2 for Liz Truss on Mark Carney. We've also got Danielle Smith slamming Mark Carney, pointing out to everyone that Mark Carney lied to her face. He had a sit-down face-to-face meeting with her. He lies to her face, and then she walks out and finds the truth. We got a bunch of other stuff. Let's jump into this. We've got some polling data here. This one coming from Table Salt says this election will be the young working class versus old, elite and upper class. This is a revolution election. It really is. Look at this. 18 to 34, 35 to 49, 50 to 64, and 65 plus. You're seeing Liberal on top here, Conservatives on top here. I mentioned it before, the Laurentian elite, the old-timer CBC watchers that are brainwashed, watching CBC all day, every day. They're up in this bracket here. Nobody over here is watching CBC. And what happened to the NDP? They're gone. We got Pierre Poilievre posting this one here. It says, after the lost Liberal decade, Canada missed out on $38 billion opportunity every single year. That's just counting the 2 big energy projects. Instead, Carney Trudeau Liberals sent those billions to America. So you can see here that's coming from a new study. We've lost billions of dollars in our country because they've been blocking infrastructure projects. Justin Trudeau put in a bill to block these projects. But now Mark Carney, the net zero guy, he's going to resurrect them? I don't think so. Well, it is happening. You see here, Canadian manufacturer closes plant, moves production to North Carolina. The union representing employees at Cpac manufacturing plant in Delta, British Columbia, announced the facility's impending closure last week and said its production would shift to North Carolina. Where's David Eby? Is he still virtue signaling and attacking Elon Musk? Or is he going to do something about this? Or is he going to keep taking bottles off the shelf? Red State bottles. It says the announcement, Cpac used uncertainty over trade in North America to make the move amid the Trump administration's unpredictable tariff announcements. Company union noted an altered economic environment in its decision. It says here, Cpac, founded in Vancouver in 1979, opened the Delta factory in 2005, and in 2019, however, the company was acquired by Toronto private equity firm Torquest Partners. The North Carolina plant was subsequently opened in 2021. The closure of the Delta plant resulted in elimination of 170 jobs. Congratulations, David Eby. How are those dollar for dollar tariffs working now? We also got this one from Blacklock's reporter showing rare forensic audit on Indigenous identities, hundreds of thousands worth of budgeting irregularities at small Saskatchewan First Nation, population 1,800. Shows here the Department of Indigenous Services yesterday would not disclose its complete audit of the Makwa Sagaichun First Nation at Loon Lake, Saskatchewan, population 1,800 people. The purpose of the forensic audit was to conduct an independent investigation into allegations. More corruption going on here, it looks like. Next up, we got Liz Truss. This is the former British Prime Minister. She absolutely blasts Mark Carney again.
I think it is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain of the governorship of the Bank of England. He created a lot of the problems that blew up on my watch and that I got blamed for were actually created by him. He backed Labour in the election and Rachel Reeves's policies, which are leading the country to bankruptcy. So why on earth the Liberal Party of Canada has selected this man, I have no idea. And I think it is illegitimate that this guy has never been elected as a member of Parliament in Canada. I'm utterly puzzled, and the Canadians. I'm not going to tell the Canadians how to vote. Obviously, I want the Conservatives to be elected in Canada, but I think Justin Trudeau has pursued a lot of the same policies that Europe has been pursuing, and America has raced ahead of us. Back at the turn of the millennium, the average Brit was catching up with the average American in terms of income per head. Wow. We are now $34,000 a year behind. We are poorer than Mississippi, which is the poorest American state. And the same is true. The same is true of France and Germany, and to some extent of Canada.
Just listen to this. Remember a couple of days ago, he's in England. He was questioned about his net zero agenda and industrial carbon pricing. He's like, well, the world's changing. You can't trade with the European Union, with England, if you don't have this. Well, they've got it and their GDP sucks.
Because they pursued all of these woke policies. High taxes, high spending, not using their natural resources. And Justin Trudeau was the architect of that. And of course, Mark Carney has been the advocate of these policies. So I don't know what is going on in Canada. But in the same way as I think people in Britain need to wake up to what the real threat to our country is, I think they need to wake up in Canada.
We got an election coming soon. We'll see how smart our population is. With Mark Carney, Justin Trudeau, all these liberals' ties to China, you would think this whole agenda is to tank Western nations so China can rise up. Is the WF working with China for Chinese superiority? They all get rich, China's happy, Western society crashes. We need to be picking up on what she is saying. That country is destroyed. Next up, we got this absolute clown show, Olivia Chow. What does the mayor of Toronto have to say?
Show our unity, our strength. Elbows up for Canada. Let's unite.
Okay. No thanks. No thanks, Chow. If I want to be on team loser, I'll give you a call. We got Kirk posting this one. This is interesting. Chandra Arya was kicked out of the Liberal Party leadership race, and now he's told he's not good enough to run as a candidate in his own riding. There's some corruption here for sure. Chandra Arya, I'm writing on behalf of the National Campaign Co-Chair, who has conducted a thorough review of your eligibility to serve as a candidate for the Liberal Party of Canada in the riding of Nepean. After careful consideration based on a review on new information by the chair of the Green Light Committee, the National Campaign Co-Chair is recommending the revocation of your status as a candidate. Unfortunately, based on that recommendation, your status as candidate from Liberal Party Canada has been revoked. I appreciate that this news will come as a disappointment to you. He came out and said something stinks with Mark Carney Liberal leadership race, and they kicked him out. This party is dirty, they're corrupt, they're a bunch of thieves, which we already know. They stole $400 million, released the documents, named the traitors. This is some rotten stuff. This party's rotten to the core. If they really do have something on them, release the data. Show what they have on Ruby Dalla. They got nothing. Next up, we got Danielle Smith absolutely blasting Mark Carney for lying to Danielle Smith to her face. This is getting messy.
Before I begin, I do just want to comment on an event that happened yesterday as it relates to my meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney and the comments of his new Environment Minister, Terry Duguid. Yesterday, in my discussions with the Prime Minister, I made it clear that Alberta will no longer tolerate an emissions cap on oil and gas, which absolutely works like a production cap that scares away billions of investment and thousands of jobs, makes us more dependent on the United States, and has been found by Ottawa's own Parliamentary Budget Office to be greatly destructive to the Canadian economy. He both told me in the meeting and then later in his press conference with the media that same day that he wasn't in favor of hard caps like that. He said he was interested in results and getting projects like pipelines in the ground. And that's good because you can't fill new pipelines and cap oil production at the same time. So the Prime Minister's words sounded kind of nice yesterday until I looked at my phone right after the meeting with him and found out that his new Environment Minister had just told media on the other side of the country that the federal Liberals would be keeping the emissions cap in place. And this has been the same story for the last 10 years. Liberals come to Alberta, they smile for the cameras, they tell everyone how much they're going to work with Alberta and support the energy sector. Then they go home and proceed to do everything in their power to roadblock and scare away investment from the energy sector. And now they're doing it when Canadians are literally demanding that we build new pipelines and production to become more independent from the United States. So we're just asking the question of the Prime Minister, is he prepared to lift this destructive and unconstitutional production cap or not? Albertans and Canadians do want the answer before they go to the polls and not after. In fact, we'd like to have the answer today. And I hope that we know whether or not it's the Prime Minister's message or the Environment Minister's message. I know there are many members of the media who wanted me to address that off the top, so I wanted to do that.
Wow. Lying straight to the Premier. Okay. Ottawa siphons over $4 billion a year from hardworking Albertans in oil and gas and gets nothing in return. Let's ask Trump if Alberta joins U.S. how much Alberta oil and gas revenue he will require. Can't hurt to ask. That's what's going to happen. Someone's going to ask. Trump's going to say, how about $1 billion? And then a lot of Albertans are going to be thinking, maybe Canada's not the place to be. Next up, we got a post from Scott Moe. It says, today was my first opportunity to speak with Prime Minister Carney and probably his last before a federal election. On behalf of Saskatchewan, he lays out a whole bunch of things here. He wants him to immediately engage with President Xi Jinping to indicate Canada wants to negotiate a path for removing tariffs off Canadian canola, peas, pork, and seafood. Mark Carney not going anywhere near Xi Jinping. He doesn't even care about Saskatchewan. It's deplorable. He's not talking to Trump. He's not talking to Xi Jinping. He's the Prime Minister right now. Doesn't matter election or not. He's got to engage. Commit to support and provide swift approval of pipeline projects. He's not going to do that. Commit to work with provinces on U.S. tariffs. He's not going to do that. Commit to not impose tariffs on Saskatchewan resources. He's not going to do any of these things. He doesn't care about Canadians. Repeal laws, regulations, complete removal of carbon tax. Mark Carney is going to make all this stuff worse. He does not give a crap. He is going to further implement his net zero agenda. This is an interesting post here by Stephen Taylor. So this is a question asked in French.
Montréal. Merci de répondre à la...
So it reads out here, in 1 week, you promised to cancel the increase on capital gains. You opened the door to pipeline project, and you also promised to cancel GST on the purchase of a first home. My question is simple. Why didn't you run for the Conservative Party? So I'll just go to the end here where he gets the final bit of the question.
Simple, pourquoi vous n'êtes pas présenté pour le Parti conservateur?
Il y a plusieurs raisons pour lesquelles.
Yeah, because he's too busy stealing Pierre Poilievre's platform because he's got no ideas for himself. And he doesn't want to lose. The only way he can win is by stealing the Conservatives' platform. And apparently there's a bunch of Canadians too dumb to realize what's going on. We got some news here saying Mark Carney and the federal government, the provinces have agreed to create a national trade and energy corridor. And here's a shot of them. They had to do the whole photo op. I mean, look how many cameras there are here. There's actually a shot somewhere from the other side where you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cameras or something. It's a lot. You can notice Danielle Smith's not there.
First Ministers agreed today, and again, I thank them for this. We agreed today to develop a national trade and energy corridor strategy. Yeah, for transportation, for energy, for critical minerals, and digital connectivity. And so the agreement is to turn what has been a concept into a reality that will diversify and strengthen our economy. And to make that concrete, the federal government, my government, is acting now in several ways. Let me begin by saying that we are committing to remove all exemptions, all federal exemptions under the Canada Free Trade Agreement. We're introducing a new First Mile Fund to provide capital that build transmission and transportation networks to link extraction sites to existing rail and road networks. In other words, you think of a critical minerals project or something that's away from an existing network, linking them in can be decisive on the economics and whether they get built. We are creating a one-window approval process. We are committing to table legislation by the 1st of July for goods to travel across the country barrier-free or free of barriers of federal barriers. So we're combing through all federal legislation for those barriers. We intend to, from a federal level, to have free trade by Canada Day.
This is insane. They had to wait until Donald Trump threatens annexation before they take action on this stuff. That's what requires the Liberals to do anything, is an imminent threat coming from another country. They don't deserve another shot in power ever.
We are going to remove any labor mobility restrictions for federally regulated professions. We will eliminate federal duplicative requirements by recognizing provincial assessments for major projects. This is so-called mutual recognition. So one project, one review. And we will work with the provinces and other stakeholders, Indigenous groups, to identify projects of national significance and accelerate the time frame to build them.
Mark Carney is an absolute snooze fest. Well, they're taking the entire platform off the Conservative. Pierre came out and announced this first. Mark Carney's there to rip it off. Pierre announces the cut on GST and houses. Mark Carney's there to rip it off, but only do it for first-time home buyers. Pierre campaigning on axing the tax. Mark Carney pretending to axe the tax. Pierre saying he's going to cut capital gains. Mark Carney saying he's going to cut capital gains. This next clip here, we got Danielle Smith endorsing Pierre Poilievre for Prime Minister.
My friends, there is only one real choice for Canada for our next Prime Minister. There is only one leader who will dismantle the nation-killing policies of the Liberals and NDP, and that, my friends, is federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. I have faith that Pierre will unleash Canada's energy sector like we have never seen before. He will free Alberta from being landlocked by the federal laws and policies we've had to endure. He will bring back law and order to our cities and fix the Liberals' open border immigration system. He will fix the bloated budget. He will rebuild our distinguished military and end the leftist lunacy that we have had to suffer under for 10 long years.
She's coming out swinging. In contrast here, we got Doug Ford essentially endorsing Mark Carney because Doug Ford is a Liberal.
The rules have changed. When we're under attack by one person and economic war, all the rules have changed. We have to get to market on everything. We have to build those big infrastructure projects, start shipping our goods all around the world. We can't be so reliant on one country, the United States. We need to diversify our trade and make sure that we partner up with other countries around the world.
Are you concerned that
the difference in these meetings between Prime Minister Trudeau and Prime Minister Carney? Scott, can you give your assessment
little different tone. I don't want to compare one against the other. Two different styles. Prime Minister Carney, extremely bright business person. He gets it, wants to get it done, and he needs to. He knows we have to move forward at a rapid pace to protect our country.
That sounds like an endorsement to me. Doug Ford's a sellout. I think he's definitely compromised. He's also a complete buffoon. Ford is full-blown WEF, an actual liberal in conservative suit. Looking around, it seemed maybe Doug Ford was a member of the WF. I don't know. Next up, we got a report here from CNN showing how Canadians used to go down to Maine primarily from Quebec for vacationing at the beach here, and now they are not. They're all canceling vacations, and it's having a major effect on the economy here.
You got to take into the fact how the Canadians perceive this, and they are incredibly pissed off.
We met Sterling Morse in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. He owns the Point of View Inn, which is only about 150 miles from the Canadian border.
We have been here.
He says the majority of his regular customers are French Canadians.
Very traditional people, families that take the same room, the same dates every year.
Not this year. Sterling says most of his Canadian customers have canceled, fed up with President Donald Trump's antagonistic rhetoric toward Canada. There's the threat of tariffs, too, and lately Trump has suggested redrawing the border between the two countries.
It's affecting at least 90% of my business.
Are you saying you've had 90% of your business canceled this year?
Easily.
Point of View Inn?
During our visit, yet another Canadian called to cancel.
Listen, monsieur, you don't need to explain anymore.
This is every registration card from last year. This is the Canadian. That's my American. This just went away.
That's all you got now. That doesn't pay the bills.
Does not.
Best of my ability.
For Sterling Morse, it all snowballed shortly after Donald Trump's inauguration.
All of a sudden, an email pops up. It's almost like, your phone, ding, ding, slow ding. And it's people that have been here for 35, 40 years. You recognize that number. And it's like, I know why they're calling. And the anger is, in my eyes, incredibly justified.
Here in Old Orchard Beach, roughly 40% of the tourists come from Canada, according to the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber's executive director told us that those tourists make up about 30 to 40% of the revenue for many of the businesses here.
I think we're still kind of seeing how many different industries this impacts. It doesn't just impact tourism, of course.
Over at the Alouette Beach Resort, owner Fred Kennedy hasn't seen a cancellation yet, but he's heard an earful from his Canadian customers. What are they telling you?
Well, their feelings are basically hurt. They don't like to be referred to as the 51st state, and they feel that they just want to express themselves in sort of a nationalistic way. As a innkeeper, hotelier, I'm concerned with losing any guests. I'm sort of cautiously optimistic that things will resolve themselves as time goes on.
Old Orchard Beach is a seasonal town, so businesses have about 12 to 15 weeks to make their money for the entire year. Back at the Point of View Inn, Sterling Morse doesn't see any way he can make up that lost revenue this season.
You got to start thinking about the end game. The end game of 50 years of tradition, to be honest, yeah.
Like you would consider closing down, selling?
There may be no choice.
Sterling Morse, the inn owner who says he lost 90% of his business, went to school in Montreal and feels a real kinship with Canadians. He told me that their anger is justified and he appreciates their renewed sense of nationalism. He also told me that he has tried to convince some of them to change their minds and to come anyway, but he says they are standing firm with Canada.
I can relate to the guy having all your eggs in one basket and then having that rug pulled from you. It sucks. These tariffs suck. They need to end. This is just the start of the impacts. We're seeing some in America, obviously tons in Canada, a whole bunch of people's livelihoods getting screwed up because of all this. He's angry because he called Canada nasty. I mean, that was yesterday. That's not helping. He was referring to the Trudeau Liberals, but I don't think a lot of Canadians are going to take it like that. I don't want to travel and spend money in a country that insults and threatens annexation. That sums it up right there. 4,500 thumbs up. Looking through here, you see people saying they won't visit America again until Trump is gone. Canadians are nice, not stupid. These tariffs have to end. There's no hard feelings between Canadians and Americans. That's the worst part about this. It has created this animosity towards each other, which is ridiculous. There we have it. Mark Carney keeps lying to everyone. Press conferences, Danielle Smith, you name it. Is he building a lot of trust by spewing out these lies? Not a great look as a prime minister. Will Canadians get duped by his sudden flip-flop on policies, looking like a conservative when really he's an eco-green zealot, just waiting to sink his teeth into Canada and unleash his net zero hellscape?